What's up, folks? Welcome to Nino's Corner.tv. I have a survivor with us today, Kelly Patterson. Her book, she's the author of the book, Trafficked to Treasured. It's on Amazon. It came out in 2018. So, it's not like you're jumping on the bandwagon and just coming out now, which I don't discredit anybody for even coming out now or even later down the line. But you came out ahead of the charge. 2018 was before really this came into the mass consciousness of society. You wrote a book, From Trafficked to Treasured, and you were really one of the pioneers of this. I mean, you're one of the first, and you're at least the first in South Dakota. Is that correct? To come out at this type of level, right?
Yes, at any level on
Wow.
trafficking. Are we allowed to say that?
Yeah, you can say whatever you want. This is going on .tv and on Rumble. So, the things that I want to talk about here is, first off, thank you for your bravery. Thank you for coming out. It takes people like you to allow other people to be inspired and come out as well. A lot of people don't start remembering their past until they're in their mid-30s or even 40s, from my understanding. They start looking back and going, wait a minute, why was this like that? Or why was that like this? What the hell happened? I remember something happening when I was 5 or 6 years old, and they start remembering. Let's start with you. Let's go all the way back when this started happening with you. First off, was this something that was highly severely suppressed, and then it started coming out later in life, or did you remember all the way through your childhood, your teens, your 20s, your 30s? How did this how did this resurface?
I like to say a lot of my life was like bookends. I would remember what happened on this end, and I'd remember what happened on this end, but whatever was in between of any incident that was traumatic was missing. So, for instance, remember being in one traumatic incident, being picked up, being chased down, grabbed, pulled into a vehicle, and then remember being dropped off, but not anything in between.
Wow, so you blocked that out, and that's common, correct?
Very common.
How old are you when you were chased down by this vehicle and picked up? How old are you at this? Was this the earliest memory?
Oh, no, that's not my earliest memory at all. But that was the first one to come forward. And I believe that's because it was so severely traumatic. It was very, prior to that time, anything that was being done it was a trafficking ring. So anything that was being done, there couldn't be wounds left on the body, things like that, because everything needed to be undetectable. And when you're living in your parents' home, they don't want anyone to know something's happening to you. And
so you were dragged into a vehicle, right? Mm-hmm. And this was by your neighbor?
So this is later in life. Do you want me to start
from the beginning? Yeah, I thought this was your earliest. Okay. Let's start from the beginning.
Okay. We'll give it a whirl. That could be 2-3 hours. So we'll try to compact it for you.
Yeah, let's compact it. We'll just go through your most how this all began.
Yeah. So I have some memories of grooming at age 4 by a family relative and our neighbor. Small communities in South Dakota. So everybody knows everybody trusts everybody, nobody locks their doors, that kind of a community. And the neighbor, unbeknownst to the community, was deeply involved with interconnected crime ring that was international. And so he's very high level, and it was an elite trafficking ring. I didn't know, what the heck any of that was. This neighbor was very kind initially.
What decade was this? The 70s, 80s, 60s? What decade was it?
This would have been, let's see, that would have been 60s, 70s, 80s.
So back then, everyone just let their kids roam the streets free, just come home when the lights come on, type of thing. That's how we were all raised back then. I remember leaving the house early in the morning and playing all day, and man, it's really, you had to fend for yourself. I mean, looking back, I can't believe how really crazy that was.
Me too. Me too. It's shocking we would never think of parenting that way, but
Oh,
it is crazy. I mean, nobody even bothered to check where you were when you got out of school until you got home at dinner time.
crazy. Because
Yeah.
everyone was so trusting. This wasn't
Yeah.
even in
Yep.
pedophilia and things like that. We're not even in anyone's consciousness.
Mm-mm. No good touch, bad touch. Nobody talked about
No,
that. If I'd have been taught even that, real young, maybe it would have helped. Although I have memories that are much younger than 4, just barely glimpses of memories. So perhaps there was no amount of teaching that would have been able to interfere in this situation. I'd like to think that if we do that and we start as young as our children can understand anything, this is my privates, this is your privates, anything like that, I think could help for sure and does help. That just wasn't talked about.
no, it wasn't in the consciousness back then. I mean, I was raised 70s and 80s, so I know. Okay, let's get back to this. So start from the very beginning again. Sorry about that. I had to bring that point out because it's crazy to me to even think this now. Because my niece's kids, my sister's kids, they all go to the parties their kids go to now. It's very highly supervised. Like none of this letting your kids go off and wander the streets until the lights come on happens anymore.
Yes. Yep. Yep. And I had a particularly um we moved many times. My dad worked for the government, so I had a lot of freedom because that both parents were working hard, and also um, my dad and mom were partiers, so they just weren't home a lot on the weekends and things like that. I didn't really have, even during the school week, really any kind of curfew, and until I got older, so it was very strange. I would be one of 4 kids running the streets at night.
So you
you know
were an easy target.
I was a very easy target. And even as young as 4, I remember going to the gas station, which was like a block and a half from my home, and picking up cigarettes for my mom. They would just, I'd buy them and, you know,
Wow.
yeah, crazy times.
Yeah, insane. But
Yeah.
let's get back to the story you started on.
Yeah. So uh, the neighbor, being involved as deeply as he was, of course, he's looking for targets. And he befriended my family right away, and he became just the best kind of friend of my parents. That one that is, and this is how they do that a lot. They endear themselves in all kinds of ways. They're there for you when you need things. They'll watch your kids. They'll loan you money if you need it. Whatever. And he was a philanthropist on top of it all. So it was just the guy everybody trusted.
A wolf in sheep's clothing.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. And so living right next door, and with parents busy and so on. And I didn't have a great relationship with my dad, even from early life. So I was just a super setup target. I mean, it was just perfect for the situation. And he would started by just taking me out with him and his dad, sometimes for ice cream, things like that. Very, very innocent.
How old was this man?
Oh gosh, like 4. And
Wait. Hold on.
think anything of it.
Wait, hold on. The guy that was he was 4 years old.
I was.
No, how old was the man that was
Oh
taking you?
gosh. Oh, I don't know. Let's see.
You said he was taking you with his father, correct?
Yes, and his dad was really old at that time.
Okay, so he was 20s, 30s, maybe 40s.
I'm trying to think because I'm trying to think how much older he is. But yeah, at least in his 30s or 40s, at
Okay.
least. And his dad was involved as well. So, and I don't have a lot of memories of the dad except he terrified me.
So he learned
And
it
so
from his father.
Yep, they run so much like the mafia. I think they are mafia. The way things hand down in the family lines there. And I'm seeing what appears to be similar with his son. So, I don't know that for sure. But and this is like I said, it's international. When you hear to the level of where it went, you'll see that it gets as high as it gets. Um, So I'm trying to make it short for you because there's a lot going on in between. But we're talking about that small community feel. One of the signposts to go home is we always had a siren that went off in our community at 6 p.m. And then everybody knows it's dinner time. And it was kind of everybody set their clocks by it. Well, at age 6, so at age 4, he began sexually grooming me. And it was very mild comparatively. And you don't know as a child that it's wrong. You don't
What's
really know
mild? What would be considered mild?
Molestation, but very gentle.
Like touching you in the wrong places, and okay.
And you don't know what the wrong places are because you've never been taught.
Right.
Never been taught. And
as a child, you just go, that tickles or that feels good. I don't know why, but they right.
Yeah, and yet it's uncomfortable.
And it's uncomfortable. Wow.
Something feels wrong, but he's the good guy. He's the adult. That's a time where you respected your elders as well, right? So it was like what they say goes kind of thing. It must be me that's wrong. Your little brain thinks that way. And so I just I didn't say anything. I didn't tell. I didn't know that it was anything to tell. I didn't know what to call any of it. I'd never been taught even the names of my own body parts yet. And so you're just very innocent, ignorant. And when things progressed and it becomes more uncomfortable, you're questioning yourself. And again, the progression was very minor. So at age 6, though, he introduced me to the trafficking ring. And literally a group of men sat in a ring and they passed me around the ring doing the same thing.
Just fondling you and touching you?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Can we edit out the nose rubs?
No, don't worry about that. So
I've got a thing going here.
That's okay.
I'm so sorry.
So I don't want to get too descriptive on this, but it was just fun.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I understand. Yeah, that's
no, we can get it. I don't want to get like crazy descriptive.
I don't either. Yeah,
but they were just fondling you at that point, just touching you in the wrong areas, right? Okay, and then it progressed, right?
Yeah, and this is important for people to understand because so many people cannot understand why a child doesn't tell. Well, you're 6 years old, and they have what I call their pillars that they use probably each and every time with organized crime, with organized elite rings. They've got this figured out. They know how to program a child into silence. And so they use these pillars. And what it is, so the first thing was shame right there. That was shame. You're the only one with no bottoms on in the room. So how does that feel to a child?
Right.
So shaming and exposed and terrifying. But so they use shame. Then the next thing is they said to me, they named my little sister. And they said, if you don't show up when we give you this signal, then we will go after her. So what does that bring out? The protector. No way I'm going to let them have my little sister. So now they've got me wanting to protect as well.
So these are pillars: shame and then protection.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then the next one is, of course, terror, threats of death. And that was done through, they knew my family, very well, small community. So any little stories coming out in your home, everybody knows about everybody. And my brother, and by the way, sometimes I throw in really stupid humor, so be prepared for it. This is actually a true story, but it is funny. My brother's a pastor today, but he was a little pyromaniac. And
so is
the little pyro is he's like 4 years old, 3 years old, and there's an old granny in the neighborhood who's not all in her right mind, keeps giving him matches. And I mean, he lit his leg on fire. They thought that would stop it. Well, none of it did. And he had started trying to throw matches into our car gas tank.
Oh my gosh. And
so they get him stopped from that. And then he goes to the propane tank in our backyard. Now, by this time, we had moved out of the neighborhood of that bad neighbor. We were across town. We'd actually moved out of state and moved back even. And we're across town. I'm 6 now. And my brother was doing the propane tank thing. And they said what they knew would be a very real threat to me. They knew I'd already been in on those conversations with my brother and my parents. And they said, and besides, if you don't show up, we will just blow up the propane tank in your backyard and take out your whole block.
So they knew where you moved. They knew where you moved because they were still in touch with your family.
Absolutely. Oh, they were best friends.
Oh my
Best
God.
friends. Yeah. I mean, they're at our house all the time. And
so be careful who you befriend. It's these people that come up. Those are the ones the nicest to you, your kids. Golly.
And the nicest in your church. The ones who offer.
Well, yeah, they would gravitate to something like that when they child daycare, churches, wherever they can be trusted.
Yes. Yes, exactly that. Exactly that. Which is sad. I hate to tell people that because it makes the world that much scarier, but it's just the truth. And we have to be aware. And by the way, is my mic good for you?
Yeah, your mic is great.
And one more fun thing. Look, it's pink.
All right.
So I do that because it's such a heavy topic. And if we can, just my ordinary silliness just comes into play.
That's fine.
I'm in general.
Whatever makes you comfortable. It's all good.
Well, and I'm happy when people always ask about that. Well, when you hear my life, who wouldn't be happy to be free?
Yeah, 100%.
So it's like I probably enjoy life more than most people just because of that. Is what I assume anyway. I'm just a happy person.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, that's a God thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so awesome.
Yeah. And then the fourth thing that they use.
Well, hold on. He said that he was going to blow up the tanks in your house.
Oh yeah. And
if you didn't show up on time, where would you show up? Because I mean, you couldn't drive anywhere, you couldn't go anywhere, and you were across town, correct? So where would you show up?
I haven't been saying this publicly, so let me think about this a minute. But I will say this: there was a building very close to the school that was used for that introductory meeting, and they wanted me to show up at that same spot. They said someone would show up on the playground with and I'm not going to share what type, but it was just because it's very ugly for me personally, but it was a particular type of candy that they would flash in their hand. And
candy?
Yes, and it had a message on the candy, and that message meant to me, you're going to show up or else. I mean, that was the threat, So we've got shame, we've got protector, we've got terror, and then their final blow to all of this was they just, when they're sitting there at the very end of kind of at least what felt like the end of what was going on, they're like, oh, and besides, Kelly, we can't help ourselves. You're too sexy. You're 6 years old. You don't know what sexy means, but your brain hears, this is my fault.
So you think it's your fault. So like, what is that, guilt?
Yeah, you could call it guilt. You could call it blame. But yeah, they absolutely put the onus on you. So it's, I call those the 4 pillars. I mean, it's a perfect storm.
Right.
No child is going to break out of that.
The psychology, they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Oh, we're sorry. You're just too sexy. You're 6 years old.
How sick is that?
What's that?
How sick is that?
To me, execution is the only way you solve this with these people. I don't even look at it as a rehabilitation or there's none of that. It's just take them out. I'm sorry, but I mean, they can deal with the Lord in their own way, and then just take them off this world. That's how I see it.
Me too.
There's no room for it. We don't need to spend our tax dollars rehabilitating these people. They're sick. They need to go to another place and handle it with God, So that's how I see it. There is no I have no sympathy for these people at all. I'm sorry if it's a sickness, then fine. I mean,
No, it's
okay.
not.
Well,
I
whatever
mean,
it
it's a
is,
sickness
whatever
of
it
the
is.
soul, all right.
Well, I don't have time to figure it out, and nobody does, and that's what I'm saying. Nobody has time
Yeah,
to figure this
yeah,
out so they can hurt
yeah.
other people. It just look at the trauma they cause you. And by the way, I've been traumatized as well as a kid, so that's
I'm
why I find this
sorry.
very deep to my heart. So that's why I just handle it a different way. I went into boxing and beat the shit out of people. But but so let's get into this. So shaming, protection, terror, guilt, or blame. You're just too sexy. What happened after that? So now you're 6 years old. They're saying you're just too sexy, Kelly. Then what transpires after that?
So then I cannot begin to tell you how often, you can't put days together, but often enough, they would have someone show up at the school and they would flash that particular, candy that was to trigger a response. That went into my brain that, okay, you don't go home today, you don't go play with friends today, you show up at this building today. And that they taught us this, I would call it like a light switch. So this is programming at its most basic format. By the way, I teach on dissociation a lot. I've even taught in colleges like University of Colorado and things like that, multiple times actually, because it is a topic I'm very passionate about because of how much it affected my life. I see dissociation as an incredible gift to children, in a gift from God, honestly. Our brains were made in such a way that if you're traumatized before age 9, your brain knows how to put things into neat little packages in, we could maybe call them grooves.
Compartmentalization.
Yep, absolutely.
Men are
Compartmentalization.
able to do that their entire lives.
They are. They are.
Men are
Yeah.
great at
Watch
that. They
for the
just,
people, the guys that say, I don't remember my whole childhood.
yeah. I
And
mean,
be a
as a
reason.
man, I know like men, we're able to just file things back in different boxes. And
Mm-hmm. Yep, your
women, I
waffle
think you
brains
blend
and their
everything.
spaghetti brains.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, um, and that's the difficult part about being female, but they find a way to program that too. They use everything they learn psychologically too. So for instance, I'm a kinesthetic learner. So I learn from touch. What a horrific thing to utilize against me, of course. You can imagine how they were really able to deeply program me because of that. And this little switch was, you'd be in this, they called it schooling actually, and you'd be in there schooling with other children. Horrific things are going on, but they're not, remember now I mentioned they're not leaving any bodily scars, they're nothing like that. And
And
to,
there's levels to this. Like this
oh,
is kind of a softer. I'm not
this is the
minimizing what you went
beginning.
through. Okay.
This is the beginning. Um, they want to prove to you because now say if you're raised in it, if your family's involved, nobody cares about scars. But when you are a neighbor, or a friend, of the family, if there's scars that nobody can account for, they're going to be questioned and
Can
remaining
I ask you
anonymous
something?
is key.
Do you think having a strong father in the household is a big key to not let it, to this not even happening? Like
Absolutely.
an alpha male type father in the household that watches the kids, like this would never happen, correct?
Yeah, I think so.
That's
As
how
long
that's
as
how important a father is.
you can go to alpha male. My dad he had this side to him that was super strict, but if you have super strict without that compassionate love, then that works against you as well.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I bet that makes sense to you.
It makes sense.
You look like you have the soft side too.
I'm a softie. My dad too, man. We're very close.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's what's needed is that combination dad,
Right.
you know. Um, Having none of that made me just a target. But I'll tell you the real thing that made me a bigger target. And I didn't know any of this, until later in life. Probably about, I want to say 10 years ago, I started learning about my family lines. and I was unaware of the bloodlines. And I'm going to do this real quick. And I apologize, but man, I've got the itchiest nose on the planet right now.
Okay.
And I just cannot make it stop.
All right. Don't worry about it.
I apologize. I don't like for you to have to edit. Usually I never need edited. So this is,
It's okay.
it's like, if it could come against me, it's been a warfare thing here. um, where was I at?
6 years old.
Oh, my family line. I was unaware until, maybe, like I said, maybe 10 years ago, maybe a little more than that, that our whole family lines are royalty. I mean, just royals, royals, royals. But worse than that, and this is why I know I was targeted more so than even the way my life was with my dad or any of that, is that the bloodlines that I come from, 3 of them are from the 13 families of the Illuminati.
Hmm.
And so, and I
This
didn't
is
know
something you figured out later.
much later.
Could it be
Much
that you're
later.
trying to make sense of this to understand why you were a target? Because
Nope.
I mean, could you have just had a perverted neighbor? I mean, seriously, could he have just been a sick neighbor?
I wish, except for I ended up with world leaders
Okay.
through the
All right.
pipeline.
Let's.
Yeah, and my grandfather was a Mason, and that was kept secret. And my family still doesn't know this, but he showed me his KKK robe as well.
Your grandfather. Okay. Before we get to that, let's go back to 6 years old and take it up from there.
Which he's all part of that, but yeah.
Okay, but
Yeah.
let's can we move forward from there,
Sure.
like in the timeline?
And we can make the timeline kind of short to get up to the really big stuff.
Okay.
In that, so we continued to move, and the next community we moved to, I was in between 2nd and 3rd grade, and I really thought moving meant whatever happened wasn't going to happen. You know, there's that kind of thought in the back of your mind, even though you're not consciously tapping into what's going on. You've learned how to flip the switch. I mentioned that at the moment that siren goes off, and the next community we're in has a siren as well at dinner time. The moment that siren goes off, you completely gather yourself together, go home as though you've been playing with Susie down the street. So nobody, suspects anything's been going on. And I was a very honest child. I would tell on myself even, if I was doing something wrong, because I couldn't lie. And yet I'm living an entire life of lies.
Not your fault.
It's very, so in this next community, when I turned 9, I didn't live there too long, and I turned 9. And I only remember because age 9, a lot of things started to go really crazy. I started having nightmares that were just nonstop. I had nightmares prior to that, but they were not as horrific. These became so real. And I have certain spiritual beliefs about what I think was going on there, for sure. I think it was more than just nightmares. And I think these people, were involved in a cult, and I've seen things that I can't even describe to individuals, that if they can't leave a scar on you, they would bring adults in, and they would harm them to where, in one case for certain that just won't leave my mind, I'm sure the woman never survived. There's just no way she could have survived what we saw. And that
As a child, you're watching them abuse another person, another woman in front of you.
Yes.
And they were hurting her in front of you.
That was silencing too, see?
Yeah.
And if you don't obey, we'll do this to you.
Okay. How many men were in the room doing this?
It was men and women. They had a woman in particular, an elderly.
And you were
woman.
9 years old.
So that actually I saw at age 7. Okay. So I kind of went back and forth there, but I saw the same stuff at age 9 all the way through until they felt you were old enough to cover up for your wounds. They would harm others. So
you would sit in the room naked, probably being abused sexually, while they physically hurt this other person. Like killed her?
I know they did. There's no way she survived.
What would they do to her?
I don't know if we
say it.
I've never told anybody except my husband. It's so, I'm trying to think if I even
You're on
have,
.tv. You can say whatever you want. We're not on
I
YouTube.
know it's so bad. What I don't want to do is scar other people. I can't even think of anyone I've ever even heard anyone describe seeing this happen. Let me think of words that are not as gross. Um, if you were to strip by strip remove skin from an individual,
Like an onion.
yeah, except in all the way, instead of like all the way around, it'd be just strips of flesh.
With a razor or with what? Like what they use?
No, it was
like
some kind of a scalpel. Not honestly, I don't know. You're trying not to look. I know I saw what would to me would be bigger, but there was scalpels a lot. We saw scalpels a lot. And that's probably because the medical community was so involved, the dental community was so involved.
So these are rich elite men
Oh
getting
yes,
off on this stuff,
yes.
making you watch it. And how old was this person they were abusing or trying? They were killing.
I would put her as a mom, to my 7-year-old brain.
20s,
She was 20s, 30s.
17 to 30, maybe.
Mhm.
Okay, and so she was screaming probably and in horror, and you watch all this, correct?
They silenced her pretty quick too, and I'm not certain how they did that. There was there are pieces you have to remember that when you start to get memories back, you get what you get.
Yeah.
And you don't get to really direct. My memories, most of them have come in the form of flashbacks. Flashbacks are so much more severe than like just memory leaking into your brain. You really relive it. You smell it. You feel it. You lose touch with reality of where you are. My husband has learned how to bring me back and ground me by reminding me who he is, reminding me what year it is, things like that. Because you are completely there when you do have a flashback.
Mm-hmm.
So,
how many times did you encounter this type of situation? And let's first answer that. How many times did you were you involved in this type of situation where they made you watch them torture and punish and kill somebody?
No idea.
Many
I
times.
wish I could tell you, but I really have no idea.
More than once?
Multiple times.
Okay. And
Yeah.
these men that were
multiple
involved,
horrific things.
these men that were involved, were they Masons? Were they high elite? Were they just doctors and lawyers? Just people that are bored with money? What kind of men are these?
I think we had what I saw was a combination of what you just described. There were Satanists for sure, because I saw full blown satanic rituals. I have been in the Church of Satan for a ritual in San Francisco when Anton LaVey was around. So at least once, maybe more than once. So there were Satanists, there were Masons for sure. I say this to people: if you are trafficked, your odds of being trafficked to a Mason are so high, or to a Satanist, because, and they can be one and the same as well, but just being trafficked to anybody with strange things going on in their heads is so high, because your traffickers do not care who pays for their time with you. They really don't care. They're pulling in either the money or they're going up somehow, some level, and they'll traffic you to anybody. So
And they protect each other.
Say that again.
They protect each other.
Yes, they do. Yes.
Yeah, it's a club.
And I've known individuals who really had barely any interaction with these kind of people, but they still have had some interaction. Where mine was a lot of this. Mine was clearly based on a lot of ritualistic garbage. But some who maybe encountered it once or twice freaked them out of their ever loving minds because they'd never seen it before. And I'm basically raised in it, and so you're going to quite possibly touch base with those kind of people no matter what if you're trafficked. So at age 9 is when things really started to go severe. And that's when I started to get I had been pretty sickly already, but it really began to affect me because I've got to have a drink here. Again, I apologize to all the editors.
No,
I apologize. At age 9, they began to put me in porn films with adult males. I thought,
so
in fact,
penetration.
you guys
They
a
were like,
picture
you were
of me at age 9.
now they're really going in. They're doing it. Okay.
I don't know if you have access to those photos I sent you, but I sent you one that was age 9. And
Well, I
when
didn't see
I
it.
saw a friend sent it to me because she had read that in my book. And she said, this was hers and my birthday were not very far apart. And she said, this is us at age 9 at my birthday party when she turned 9.
Wow.
And when I saw that photo, it was shocking to me because when you're placed in that situation with adult males for as long as I had been and adults in general, you know, mind you, I'm in there 3 years now in the trafficking ring. You forget you're a child. And even in your memories, you don't feel or think like a child in so many ways. And then I saw a picture and I was a baby. At age 9, you're just an innocent little baby. And it shocked me. It really shook me into some reality I didn't even have.
I just can't even imagine the evil in this world. It's just.
It's sick. Here's what I believe about these people. Yes, they're mafia. They had evil in mind. They have perversion in mind. They're sociopaths probably. But the undergirding belief amongst the ones I was around, a lot of them, until I ended up in the political realm, it was a little different. Wasn't shown or talked about as much. Was Satan would one day take over the world. And so do all manner of evil because that's who you serve. I mean, they're completely given over to reprobate minds. They're sick.
They are legitimate Satanists.
Yep.
They are possessed by demons.
There you go.
That's what it is. This is spiritual. They're possessed by demons. So there's no helping them. We just got to send them back to hell. That's what we have to do. And okay, so let's move on. Politicians, is that what you said? Politicians and there's higher levels to what? So you're in. I guess they would call them what? Underground films. I guess they would record you having sex with adult males. You said, right? And then take it from there.
So by age 13, I had decided that I was going to exercise my right to say no.
Who taught you that?
Friends.
Taught you that? What made you think like I'm going to start saying no now?
Yeah, my friends were saying no to their parents.
Okay, so you were starting to rebel.
And so I was like, what if I said no, not to my parents, but to the ring? So I just didn't show up when I was supposed to. And thinking I got by with it. And one thing I read one time, and this is really true, elite ring traffickers are incredibly patient. See, they're grooming and growing a product that is going to age out of the home. And that they have been grooming you all this time, programming you all this time. They have a plot in mind, how they're going to utilize you when you're old enough to be out of the home. And so they've got that in mind. And so I thought I got by with it. Now I can't tell you how long between me not showing up and this punishment happened. I don't know, but it was a little while, maybe weeks. I'm not sure. But I was walking again downtown. It was a weekend. Nobody's out but me, And in fact, the streets were dead quiet. I remember this. It was a Sunday. It was dead quiet. And I'm bored. I want something to do. I'm between seventh and eighth grade. It's in the summer. And again, this is something I always remembered the bookends. This is the one where the car chase and where they grab me, they pull me into the car. And what the ring set up was a gang rape and then another gang rape after that. Both of them before I was 13. And the purpose of that was you say no, you don't show up. Well, then enjoy
Trauma.
this. Horrible trauma. That first time they cut my back, the length of my back, 3 long, very deep cuts. One of them laid open even. And then 3 cuts on my wrist. Everything was a mess. I mean, everything. Clothes were ripped. I'm bruised. I'm bleeding from head to foot. Now I've got to go home. They've got me programmed enough that I recognize I can't tell. Or more of this is going to happen. Or maybe something's going to happen to my siblings. And I get home and I had gotten a new bike that summer. Maybe this might have been the summer before, but it was a nice bike. And bike riding was a big thing, right? And I saw my bicycle laying in the backyard, and this is the other bookend. Now they drop me off down the alleyway for my home. And I'm walking home and I feel like out of body, like I'm not me anymore. And all safety that had been in place before was gone. You know, now I can be injured. And I walked up that alley. I saw my bicycle and I just picked up, threw it down multiple times. So it looked like it'd been in a bike wreck. And I just walked in with that story. And mom was, what happened to you? And she remembers this as clear as could be. It's in the book. There's just some of it for me. It shouldn't be, but it's embarrassing to share the whole story. I'll let people read about it instead. But some questions I asked her that were very sexual in nature after this incident. And she said, why didn't I put it together? Why did I not see? And she too had never been taught, they didn't, she herself wasn't taught good touch, bad touch, let alone talk to me about it. And, in her defense, my dad had been in a plane wreck by then. He had brain injury. The family was just a disrupted mess. We were so dysfunctional. It was unbelievable. They were talking divorce. Everything was a mess. And the last thing on the planet I was going to do was bring more mess into our home. I'd already been handling it. In my mind, I'd been handling it. And why was I going to bring more into that? And who's going to really help me through it when they're barely surviving their own trauma? Right. So it was just, again, more perfect storm. And from there, I deteriorated emotionally, physically. 7 years now, from age 6, I'm 13. 7 years is the average life expectancy of a child who's being trafficked. I've reached the 7-year mark, and I believe either they knew it or God himself intervened. But my parents saw Dad's jobs that he took for the government were always pay raises and also, elevated positions. This time he took a pay cut, excuse me. And because he saw in me shame, they saw that my entire countenance had changed. I'd gone from being very popular to being bullied, just all in those few months. That's because one of the boys that was involved was my age. Now that was an intentional setup as well. These were older men and then him. And that setup was, this would be someone I'd have to face every day at school. And he was horrible to me at school.
Was he related to them?
He was related. Mm-hmm. And so you can see just all of that was perfect for them. And he started a rumor. And, the whole rumor was that I wanted it and liked it and all that garbage that would spread. And there was no standing up for yourself. I mean, I tried. What I said, I had when people read my book, I have people come up to me a lot that, knew me when. And from that situation, one of them remembers, and I had remembered this too. This group of boys had come up to me and said, "Did you really do that with all those guys?" And I just said, "Do what?" And he stood up for me. He said, "I didn't think so," and walked away. And I remembered that. And he came to me about that just a few years after the book came out. And he said, "I wish I would have really understood." And I said, "You couldn't have. And there would have been nothing you could do." But
he probably would have become a victim himself.
He would have.
Probably found out that he's
not be here anymore.
Right.
Yeah. So we moved to a reservation from there. And
an Indian reservation?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Within our state. Yep. The Cheyenne River Reservation. And we lived there for 3 years. And I was unharmed there, untouched there. I have no memories of anything bad there. You drive me to any reservation in any state today, put me in a room and I'll go to sleep and sleep for days.
Wow.
There's just this,
comfort. Yeah.
We then moved. Well, so we were there for 3 years, and I ended up in a boarding school the last year of those 3 years. And the boarding school was a Christian boarding school. It was very good, a little strict, but very good. And my senior year, though, between my junior and senior year, we moved to Michigan. And Michigan is where everything changed, like 100% changed. Prior to that, my parents had become Christians. I was not. And I was, obviously angry. I always tell people if someone's rebellious, there's a reason. They're not just rebellious because that sounds like fun. There's a reason. It may not be what happened to me, but there's a reason. And when I was 17, between my junior and senior year, we moved to Michigan, and we were in Muskegon, Michigan, actually, and we were just off of Lake Michigan on another lake. And we had this beautiful beach in our backyard, and us kids were so excited about the whole setup. My window faced the beach. It seemed like a dream come true. And I now remember I've had 3 years of total safety. No idea anything was coming. And we're in the water the next day. My brother remembers.
How old are you again?
Now I'm 17.
17. So you okay.
And my brother remembers this like it was yesterday. We're in the water together and we have a couple of girls with us we had just met. And so we're just all in the water, and we hear the name Kelly echoing across this lake. And it's coming from what looked like, I would call it the rich side of the lake, the wealthy neighborhood. And we kept hearing my name, but we all looked at each other and said, "Well, it can't be me because I don't know anybody here." And just shortly after, 2 guys come jogging down the beach, stopped right next to us and said, "Hello, Kelly," and kept going. And my heart just sunk. I got physically sick. I went in the house. I was like,
who were these men?
So they were part of this ring. So remember, it's international. They're connected state to state.
So they were told, "Hey, Kelly moved to Michigan. Let's call our guys in Michigan. And they were still in touch with their parents, right?"
Oh yeah. Well, still in touch with my parents, so they haven't any problem finding me. But even so, you've got a social security number. All they'd have to do is track dad, right? So there's so many ways to, and when he's working for the government, especially, and we're very suspicious that part of what was happening to me was also MK Ultra, because of the timing, dad working for the government, and there are things that have happened in my later life that very much indicate MK Ultra. Really strange things, and we can get into that if we have time. So
well, I definitely want to leave something for the book. so people
Yeah, none
can
of this
read the
is in
book.
the, most of this is not in the book.
Okay.
Interesting. I mean, but yeah, cut me off anywhere. The elite stuff is not in the book. The only thing I talk about it, how it works, how the elite work. I didn't go into detail. I was terrified when I wrote that book. Terrified to talk about it. I only I tell how they worked by that. But when I wrote the book, by the way, I didn't even know part of my story because since that time I ran into a guy who worked for one of our presidents, one of our good ones. Well, our maybe only good one. Uh,
I can
and
imagine who that is.
yeah, might be his second term now. Um, uh, who worked very high up on the Epstein case. His job was to bring all the materials together on that case. He heard me speak, just right after the book came out. And he said, I've got to talk to you. Because I was sharing a lot of what you're hearing here. And I shared about Michigan. And in Michigan, what they did is they came up to my window that night. And this is when
After you saw these guys run up to you on the beach, they knew where you lived.
Yep.
They came up to your window that night, and then what happened?
They said, when we come to this window, you're going to be prepared to come with us. And you're not going to say no, or
And you're 17.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going out the window, and they're taking me up behind the house. There's a path that goes up to a trucker's pull-off.
That's terrifying.
Mm-hmm. So they made it worse than that because they also set me up with a 1%er motorcycle club in the area. And that was happening during the day.
So wait, hold on. It was 2 men that got you at night at the window, right? Same 2 men that came to you on the beach. They come to your window. They take you off into where? Woods?
Up through the woods behind, and then we come out, and there's literally this tarred area that trucks pull over and park because it's kind of a woodsy area. And they bring me up to truckers. Mm-hmm.
So they were selling you as like a prostitute.
Yep. Literally being turned out for the first time in my life.
Okay. And then the 1%. Yes. Hard to listen to this, man. I'm not gonna lie.
That's why I was trying not to tell some of the other stuff.
No, it's all right, but it has to get out there. And then it's okay. And then the 1%ers, how did that?
So they came from Detroit, and they happened to have a clubhouse that they hung out at in the summers in Muskegon. I have gone back, by the way, and revisited this whole area. I was shocked it was only God could do this too. They contacted me through a speakers bureau to come speak in Muskegon, Michigan, of all things. And I said, oh, by the way, I was trafficked there. And they were like, what? You're for sure our speaker, And when I was able to share about that, echoing my name across the lake, survivors came forward that came to hear me speak, said that still goes on today. Nobody had told law enforcement. It still goes on at that lake. It's called Wolf Lake. Okay. Of all names, right? And law enforcement, I was able to talk to law enforcement afterwards.
They're in on it too, a lot of those guys. They protect those guys.
Oh, I had handlers that later, when I turned 18, I had 17 to 18, I had to 22, actually, I had handlers that were law enforcement. So it's pretty scary to know who to trust. Nobody, basically, is what you learn.
And they're in positions of trust. That's what's so
sinister.
Predators all around us.
Yep. And every community, I had at least one judge that was either part of the ring or they were a John. Every community.
What do you mean, or a John?
So the traffickers are selling you, the Johns or the clients are using you.
And some of them are judges?
Oh, every community I was in, including at 6 years old, there was a judge in the room.
If more people knew about this and awakened to this, I have no doubt. You know, I think of the UFC fighter Cain Velasquez when his daughter got someone molested his daughter, and he went out and I don't know if he beat the crap out of the guy or killed the guy. Something happened though. He's serving time. But I think people would get out in the streets and find these people and string them up. They would be hunted. I have no doubt. I would join it. I have
hope
no
you're
problem. I would
correct.
seek these people out, and you know, that's just me. But I'm, you know, I'm sure a lot of people would just, and that's why I think they're not releasing the Epstein list, because the lynching that would happen. Think about this.
Mhm.
How many people would say, "That's it, they're fucked. We're going after them," and they would take it into their own hands to get justice,
Mhm.
especially celebrities. Which I don't think they should. If they're doing this, they should not be protected.
Agreed.
I say let them go. Let them
Agreed.
whatever. Let it happen to them what they did to the victims.
Mhm.
You
I
know,
have
and I
many,
think that's
many
what's going
friends.
on here. I can't understand why I understand there needs to be strategic. There's got to be methods to this. They got to be able to arrest everybody in a timely fashion. But I bet you anything, people would take to the streets and find these people at their addresses and kill them. I would bet on that. That's what
Wow.
happens to them in jail.
Well, that's what you hear. The atmosphere today scares me a little. Um, in that, well, there are people coming awake to what is going on. People need to understand how big this is. I was mentioning to you that guy that worked for our president or previously and worked on the Epstein stuff. When he spoke to me, he said, because we after Michigan, we moved to a community that ended up being a hub in our state of the ring. And the reason it was is it borders Minnesota. And there was a guy that came from Minnesota that everybody in South Dakota in the ring were afraid of this guy. I ended up accompanying him all over the world.
Can
This
you name
guy,
him? Do you name
I
him in your
cannot,
book?
I cannot, oh no, I
Is
did not.
he still around?
Yes.
All right, so
So,
he's a high level politician.
so high level that this guy who worked on the Epstein files, he said, Kelly, he said, tell me his name. And I gave him, I didn't know his name. I only knew his street name. So I gave him the street name. And he said, oh my gosh. He says, I thought you were 20 years younger than you are. He knew who he was. And he said, we couldn't take him down. We can't take him down. We can't take, he has actually retired. This was about 3 years ago. The guy had retired just prior to that. He said, and the guy that's taken his place, we can't take down either. He said, they're untouchable. And he said, and so, and I've got a really good friend. Are you familiar with Basil Boz? Oh, you got to check him out and have him on sometime. You guys
Okay.
would click.
Do you
You
have
would
his
really click.
connection? Do you know the
He
guy? Or?
is a former CIA special ops, rescues children now.
Basil what?
Sorry,
What's his name? Basil
Basil Boz. I'll send you info.
Okay.
Send you info on him. Yeah, he's your kind of guy. Um,
So
and
yeah,
Boz
definitely do that.
told
But
me as well, being former CIA, along with this guy that worked for our president, and along with my local law enforcement, one of them being he had been very involved in anti-trafficking in California and moved to our state. And they all told me the same thing. They said, don't give names because I've got children, grandchildren, they said, don't give names because we cannot protect you and we can't take them down. So the best thing for you to do is do what you do. Continue to expose that this is happening, expose that it happens in rural America. If there are names that you can name, so there are names I can name now, a couple of them.
So is that the reason the Epstein list is also on hold right now? Is because some of these names are just way too powerful, or what? I mean,
that's my personal opinion. But they said taking Epstein down and putting that case together was a breeze. They said we can't do yours. That's literally what I was told. And
They can't
that
do yours
terrified me. Mhm.
because the people that were trafficking you are more powerful than Jeffrey Epstein.
Well, let me give you the name of one
Well,
because
hold on.
yeah.
Before you do that, make sure you want to do that.
This one I can. This one I can. I checked multiple places. I've already named him on my show. He's dead.
Who?
And
Dead already.
he just died like a year and a half ago. This is a guy that
Politician or celebrity?
politician, sort of, yeah, world world leader. You'll know him. Everybody knows him. Some part of the world mourned when he died, and part of the world probably cheered.
Not Bush Senior.
No.
Politician?
This person showed up from the time I was a child. I accompanied him to Bilderberg. I accompanied him to Bohemian Grove as examples. You want to guess or you want to hear? Because it doesn't matter to me.
He just died. He just died. I want my audience to guess too. All right, audience, who do you think it is?
Is that fun? Yeah, put it out.
Let them guess. They're probably yelling at the screen right now. It's this guy. It's that guy. But he just died. He just passed away. He just passed away.
About a year and a half, I'd say.
Big
I'd
name?
have to look actually at the date, but that's what comes to my brain, about a year and a half. Up until he passed, once we started getting texting, I got an annual text. Now think about that. I've been out since I turned 22, but I got an annual text up until he passed away a year and a half ago that I think was from him. I wasn't sure, but how come I'm not getting them anymore? So
what was the annual text?
Oh, it was a bouquet of flowers with addressing me by one of my stage names that nobody knows except my husband.
Did you used to strip dance?
All of it. That was for erotic dance. It was for porn. I mean, they force you into all of that.
Of course.
I was in a brothel, so there's a brothel name. The brothel was punishment. They sent me to the brothel for a stint. And you know what I learned when I was at the brothel? Almost all, if not all of those girls were there for a stint.
What's a stint?
So for a season, they were there as either a punishment or they were on a same way as exotic dancers, usually on a circuit. You're forced there. You don't want to be there. And the reason you're on a circuit, why they're moving you and you're there for a little while, is because people could become close to you and then find out you're there against your will.
Gotcha.
All those girls were there against their will, just about. There's the one or two that are there because they want to be.
All right, for the audience sake, go ahead and name who it is.
Because they're going crazy now.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. No, and I want to expose.
But this guy's dead. This guy's
He's
dead.
dead.
I want you to be safe.
I'll tell you what made me safe to say it is he ended up coming out not just on the Epstein flight list. He ended up coming out on the Epstein. There were 3 people named on the client list, and he was one of them. And that's Kissinger, Henry Kissinger.
Oh yeah. Didn't he live to like 100?
Disgusts me to this day. That is like the grossest. As a young child, can you fathom how gross? And as again, you have pictures of me. That's up to you if you want to use them in the show. You have pictures of me at this age that was going on at like 20.
When I do interviews like this, it takes me a full few days to get over it, man. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm sorry.
No.
But I'm not.
It's heavy stuff, man.
It is. If you've done research on like Bohemian Grove, or have seen anything on that, we did a show on our podcast about my experience there with Kissinger. While I was there, I saw Henry Ford there. I mean, the things these people do.
I know the Secret Service that used to protect him.
Oh my goodness!
Wow.
I did not know. So I'm having.
So they're all involved in this perversion at Bohemian Grove, obviously.
It's so gross. it's nastier than probably people expose, because not only is there the ritual stuff, you see men behaving like animals. You as a female, like we were brought in on a bus, you don't even know where you're going. You don't even know what's going on.
Do you
And
sign a contract, or do they tell you
oh
like,
no, you're no that well, I don't know what some of the other girls did. I can only speak for myself. I never went anywhere that I had a choice of. Nothing was, I was being handled. I was being taken to places. You're an elite uh escort, basically. So we'll put it this way: Bilderberg was over here, and Bohemian Grove was over here on your surroundings and behavior. Bilderberg is, uh, tuxedos and gowns and diamonds, and Bohemian Grove is animalistic behavior and undressed people, and seeing country leaders behaving like animals, going to the
it
bathroom
never ends?
on the just out on the green, you know, just
It never ends. I mean, when you think about human behavior, like Burning Man,
mhm.
festivals, people are just in nature. Obviously, our animal instincts, primal instincts, are just to be animals. And I think when people get more power, they become more secretively animalistic. They get bored. I don't know what it is.
I
I can
wonder
only
that too.
assume. You know,
Mhm.
when I was boxing, I was a playboy, but I was with women and beautiful women, but I never gave two thoughts about the trauma they may have had or anything like that. I was just like, hey, I'm having a good time. I'm the fighter. I'm partying. I'm doing drugs. I'm drinking. I'm whatever. I mean, I was just having fun, but it was in fun. It was all in fun. It wasn't like maliciously trying to hurt anybody. I never liked the strip clubs. I never liked the escorts because I thought they were easy. I was like, no, I like a challenge. I want some kind of challenge. I don't want to pay for anything. I don't. Who wants to do that? I know what I can get. You know what I mean? That type of guy.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I never gave a second thought to the women that were doing this. I never thought like they were being made to do this. Never thought about any of that. It wasn't in my consciousness. I just thought they were just hoes. You
Oh
know
yeah.
what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you'd be surprised. So I have a lot of famous people, that I was an escort for. And, and usually they'd ask for you multiple times. They'd start to get a sort of crush or I don't know what. Um, I don't believe a lot of them had any idea I was being forced. Some knew, some were involved, and they were part of, the trafficking ring, but
Man,
others had
I
no
just
idea.
I don't understand this because it's weird to me. I'm sorry. I guess I just
It's all weird. I can make it weirder for you and have
nah.
your
Well,
brain
go
blow
ahead if
up.
you want. I mean,
No,
say what
no,
you comfortable saying here. You know,
yeah, no. I steer clear usually, even don't give the details I gave earlier with that woman. Um, I try to make it um palatable to a degree. Um, but it's all horrific. And I was thinking about this last night.
how many
I
prominent
took
men were you
so
with?
many lives
That's a
in
question I
one
want to
life.
ask.
What
How
was
many
that?
prominent politicians were you trafficked to? Did you?
Gosh, I don't know. Because I mean, I off the top of my head, let's see, I can think of seven right away. A presidential candidate, but also um, bigger than that, I was taken into South America. I had my own room in this president's mansion. And what that was about is, in fact, you could pull up the story on this. I did pull it up on the internet, where three other countries were brought into a financial deal with this nation that basically needed money and had nothing to back that they could pay it back, and no one could understand why they ended up in this big financial deal. That's because he invited these heads of state to his mansion at different times. And I was their escort, and they filmed us without those heads of state knowing in my room. And so then they had blackmail material for these married men, and that's what was used to get them to agree to these financial
Wow.
mm-hmm.
Wow.
And I was taken to Europe for the same thing. So there may have been more actually, because Europe is still very foggy to me. So that gives you an idea that, you know, when they're raising a product, they had a specific thing in mind for me. From the time I was a child, I don't doubt it. Just by the way they would punish me were experiential things, but they also use torture. I mean, they would use torture. Like when I tried to escape, torture was used, which is, there's 48 common forms of torture used in sex trafficking that the United Nations recognizes. You can look it up. It's called nonstatetorture.org, and it names what those are. And of those 48, I suffered 42 of those, and some that weren't on the list. So torture is common in trafficking, and people need to know that. They wonder why trafficked individuals don't speak, why they don't prosecute or look to get their people prosecuted. Also, it's very hard to prove. They're so hard to prove because these people are experts at being clandestine. You know, it's just all of
They're
it
very
is
patient in the grooming process. They have friends. They're in high level places. They're judges. They're politicians.
Yep.
They're all in the same club. They're Masons, correct? And you were trafficked since 4 years old, all the way. When did it end?
So I escaped at age 22. And
But up until the age of 22, you were in Bohemian Grove. You were also in Bilderberg.
Mm-hmm.
Bilderberg, Bohemian Grove.
Mm-hmm.
Many
South
prominent
America,
politicians.
Europe. Yeah. Bilderberg in New Jersey. It was meeting in New Jersey when I went. This was the weird thing. Now, I am a person who doesn't like history, geography, any of that, didn't like the news, didn't pay any attention to any of it, and who had time anyway with what was going on in my life. But when I got older and memories started coming, when, for instance, the memory of Bohemian Grove started to come, I didn't even know the name came to me. I didn't even know what it was because I've lived in these separate lives. I always refer in the book as Kelly of the day and Kelly of the night. That's that switch that you could flip. And one life was not aware of the other. So I'm looking up, why am I thinking of this word Bohemian Grove, and I'm thinking of Kissinger, you know, and I'm having flashbacks, and I Google, and there it is. It's a thing, you know. That's how Bilderberg came to me, even the year, New Jersey, all of it. And I'm like, what is Bilderberg? So I Google, it's a thing, you know, and then that's when the two parts of your brain go, holy smokes, I'm not making this crap up, because you don't trust yourself. You don't believe that your brain can do that. You think of yourself, if you have been high level programmed, you are very high functioning. And you know, and they actually seek to find intelligent people, apparently. That's what I've been told. I don't know that I'm that intelligent, but I have a pretty good amount of intelligence. And I mean, I was a very good student as well. No one would have looked at my life and said, wow, she's, you know, failing miserably, she's this, she's that, except for the drug use, because I was blunting that pain. But they were also feeding it to me.
Common,
like
that's common.
Mm-hmm. We made, to my knowledge, this is what I've remembered, that has never changed. They made, I should say, I was forced into 18 porn films. And I'm going to leave this story for the book because it's very good, a God thing. But someone I was in films with, I didn't believe it was true. I believed I was having false memories. Even though I was having flashbacks, I'm like, how could you forget a whole segment of your life of being in porn films? This has just got to be baloney. And this is when I was older, you know, like 17 to 22. And I'm like, this is bull. The guy that was in films with me found me. He'd been looking for me all our lives because he thought they killed me. And everything I had remembered, everything I had journaled, I draw to get it out of my head. Everything he validated without me coaching him 1 ounce.
Wow.
I just said, just tell me what you remember because, and I explained to him because, well, when he found out I was being trafficked, he thought I was being paid like he was. So when he found out I was being trafficked, he had a major meltdown. But it turns into this big God thing, and I want to leave that definitely for the book. Then at age 18, by the way, they set up a marriage for me. See, it gets messy. This stuff is in the books. A lot of this is. My ex's family has verified the porn. They saw it, and my ex had it. And they could not believe, they were not surprised he was involved. They actually, I was scared when they called me after the book came out, and instead they said thank you because he had been abusive to some other family members. So, I mean, almost everything I'm telling you has been absolutely 100% validated. I've got enough ties in the Secret Service realm and all of that we've been able to validate everything.
It just blows my mind that they're not going after some of these people on the Epstein list because they're too powerful. I
hate it. I hate it so much.
I can't deal with that.
Yep. And I feel the same as you. I'm you'll like this. I told you I'll throw something, and this is entertaining in a different way, but the kind of person I was, I'm only 5'2". I weighed 98 pounds the whole time. When I would weigh, if I gained 3 pounds and I was 101, then they put me back on my starvation diet. I drink water all the time because they would make me go without water even. That was part of their torture, and I'm a water addict because of it.
I'm a coffee addict.
Okay, there you go. I get that. I'm also
I like coffee.
I'm Coke Zero addict too.
Yeah, I love Coke.
I wouldn't want to weigh 98 pounds again, but I'd take 120.
Just enjoy your life now. Enjoy your life.
I know.
You deserve it. Just relax. Take it easy.
Yeah, enjoy my food because dang, that literally I got tomato soup. I got all the Coke I wanted to drink and a Snickers bar. That was my meal a day for years.
Kelly, are we good with cutting it here? Are we good, or is there more you want?
We can cut it wherever you want, but I did escape.
I want to leave some for. I mean, I'm pretty I'm disturbed, but I mean, it just is what it is. I appreciate you coming on. I totally respect your bravery, and you're welcome on the show anytime you want to come on. You got more to talk about.
That's what it was. I was going to tell you my story, my brave story. Would you like to end with that? Because I think it would be a sort of a almost a happy note anyway, at least.
It is a happy ending. You're here talking about it now, so you won.
Yeah.
You're still breathing, right?
Yeah. Well, let's just say now when you're on a podcast, you can't say, murdered somebody. You can only say
this is going on .tv, and it'll later go on Rumble, so it's kind of like Rumble.
I'll say whatever I want.
Stuff, but on .tv, you say whatever the hell you want to say. This is my channel. Well,
I was going to joke and say I almost unalived someone.
Wow.
I did pull a gun on that trafficker from Minnesota. I set up a whole scenario, had a bus full of girls that were new, and my whole idea was to get them out of there and escape. They were newbies brought in, and when you bring someone in who hasn't been raised in this, they're so fragile because it's like, they're brought in at 19 or 20 and they're thrown into this scenario, and these girls, they just use up they won't live long. And I knew that was what it was ahead for them. So my idea was I was going to get us all out of there with the bus. They had a couple of buses. They had them parked at a campfire out in the middle of nowhere. I know exactly where, but anyway, my idea was to help us all escape. But specifically, I was really, really upset for those girls. And we had this whole plan. And one of the girls, unbeknownst to us, had been telling them what my plan was. See, these guys left guns around all the time, but no girls would ever
She was
dare touch it.
snitching.
Yep, she snitched. She snitched for fear for her own life. Anything to get one night reprieve, I guess. It was really sad that she did this because it would have worked. I think it would have worked. I had three gals that were pretty knowledgeable about guns and things that were in the van, not van, it was a bus. And I said, I'm going to grab that gun, which I did. And it was loaded. And I hid it under a seat because I knew that they'd already told us that, that evening was going to be training in the bus. And this bus had a big bed in it and stuff like that. And so I hid the gun under a seat, but she had snitched, and the head guy, the guy from Minnesota or somebody had pulled the bullets out of the gun. Now I didn't know that. I thought it was still loaded.
Wow.
So when he got up there, he was sitting in the driver's seat, just kind of had it like turned sideways and being an a-hole. And I pulled the gun and shot him in the face, but there was no bullets. So
what they do to you? What they do to you?
Night. What's that?
What happened to you?
That was a very horrible night. That was a very horrible night. They actually broke my knee that night. And I was in a cast for a while.
They hit you with what, a crowbar or something, or?
Do you know, I don't remember. I have tried to remember what they did. I have blunt force trauma areas like my ribs, nose, different places that doctors have been like, were you in a terrible car accident? Which I never have been, just in a little minor, hit from behind. Well, it wasn't that minor, but I didn't get injured except in the neck, but they're always like, what happened to you? And I don't know. And they get mad at you because they're like, there's no way you can't know when your nose broke, your eyes had to been swollen shut, your face had to be, it's such a bad break. And I have no idea. I don't, to this day, I have no idea.
I can relate.
My ribs, same thing, no idea.
I can relate to that. I fought for a living, so
you know the pain.
Oh yeah, I do. I fought thousands upon thousands of people, man.
So yeah, I only just first heard that you were a boxer. I didn't know. I need to look up more about you. I just have friends that watch you all the time and love you. So I was like, sweet. Oh, hello from I gotta tell you hello from somebody.
Who?
Lisa.
Who?
And then
Lisa?
I'll give you the Lisa.
For Lisa. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. She's very nice.
Yeah.
Well, we'll end it here, folks. Please get her book, Trafficked to Treasured, on Amazon. You also do speaking.
You want me to do this?
Yeah, show it to everybody.
Yeah.
Amazing story. Wow, man. Thank you so much, Kelly. And where do people find you?
Go to treasuredlives.org. Treasuredlives.org. That will also give you a direct link to our podcast. I'm on a podcast called Surviving the Truth, True Crime.
Surviving the Truth is the podcast, and they can find it on treasuredlives.org.
And Treasured Lives is my advocacy agency. I work with survivors.
Okay.
We're raising money to get a crisis home. That's something that there's very few of in this country. We have a lot of transitional housing for survivors, just about zero crisis homes, and they're desperately needed. So that's my dream.
All right, stay with me. Thank you so much for joining me, folks. Check her out, treasuredlives.org. Get her book, From Trafficked to Treasured, on Amazon, and her podcast, Surviving the Truth. Thank you so much, Kelly. Stay with me.
Thank you.